Look, anyone can get lucky and win one listing per year just by having a pulse. We all know the one agent who landed a sweet listing that they really didn't deserve, but there's only one way to take multiple listings per month, and that's generate a lead, build trust, and then give a killer listing presentation. I'm Chris Jones, founder and CEO of Guerrilla Realty, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through my exact listing process. This is the same process my brother and I used to list 114 properties in one calendar year, the same process we've taught to 10,000 plus agents all over the US and Canada, many of whom have replicated our results and even surpassed them. By the way, I do a full 1-hour training on this exact topic, and it comes with a full download of all the tools and resources I mentioned in this video. And you can get the training for free. All you have to do is like this video, share it with a friend, and then comment shared below, and I'll send you a private link directly to the training. But anyway, here's what I'll cover in this video. Lesson number 1, setting the table. So you got a potential seller lead. Did you know that whether they list with you or not is almost always decided before you ever get to the listing appointment? Let me show you how to set the table so that the seller already wants to list with you before you ever open your mouth. Then lesson number 2, the ultimate listing presentation itself. I'm going to walk you through my entire presentation word for word. The simple script leads all the way to where it's almost impossible to say no. And it doesn't involve any high pressure sales tactics. And then finally, in lesson number 3, sealing the deal. I'll think about it. This is the worst thing that can happen after you give your presentation. Let me show you the simple hack I use to get them to not only say yes, but to say yes today. All right, here we go. Lesson number 1, setting the table. And remember, this is how you're going to make your seller lead want to list with you before you ever sit down for your listing presentation. This is really cool. And what it comes down to is basically a matter of becoming a true market authority. And this is a term we throw around here a lot, true market authority. But here's what it means to us. It means that you've mastered 4 basic stats about your market or about the subject property. And so you need to know these numbers and you know them cold. And when you do, you are going to ooze confidence. Now, one more thing before I show you the stats, I want you to know that we've built a proprietary calculator or spreadsheet for each one of these stats, and we're going to link them in the video description below so that you can get a copy of them. All right, so stat number one is you need to know your average days on market using the absorption technique. And now I'm going to cut away to show you how we do that. All of the calculators that I'll reference in this lesson will be available for download at nerdsheets.com. So you just navigate to nerdsheets.com and then click sign in using your existing account or create a new account if you don't already have one. And boom, here's the calculator. So first of all, we're gonna check out the absorption rate days on market calculator. And so let me cut over there. This is your days on market absorption calculator. And the reason why we developed this calculator is that the way that MLSs calculate days on market is highly inaccurate. And so I'm going to show you a better way to do it. So remember that when you check average days on market in your MLS, it's always going to skew low. And the reason why is it only calculates average days on market for properties that actually sell. It never accounts for properties that expire. Ever heard of an expired listing? It also doesn't account for properties that are unlisted and then relisted to avoid the stigma of low days on market. So your days on market published in your MLS will always, always, always skew low. But here's how you can fix it. It's so easy. We're going to use the absorption method or absorption technique. And this is how every other industry on earth manages inventory and figures out how long are pickles sitting on the shelf. You know, how long does this widget going to take to sell? But now we're just going to apply the same methodology to real estate. And it's really, really easy, right? So we want to calculate 3 months of absorption. I just recommend that you leave that alone. Obviously, you're going to fill in the fields with the dotted borders. We're going to leave this one alone, except in rare circumstances. I always recommend that your days on market be very, very recent data. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to get 2 stats from the MLS. We're going to go and find homes sold over the last 90 days. And then we're going to find current active listings. And that's it. And we're just going to put in those 2 numbers. So let me show you how we're going to do that. I'm going to take you over to our local MLS. which is on the matrix system. And so first we're going to do solds for the last 90 days. And we're going to do it within Fayetteville. Keep this hyper local. And I've got 873 matches, if you guys see that down there. And then we're going to click back to our calculator, right? And then we're going to go and look at current actives in the same hyper local city township, and it's 992, right? So we're going to click this in, right? And it's going to calculate true days on market automatically for us using the absorption rate. So the absorption rate is 29%, which means we have 3.4 months of inventory, and true days on market is 102 days on average, right? So here's how that works, and here's why you can use it to apply to pickles or widgets or anything you want, but especially works really well for calculating days on market for real estate, right? So we know that over the last 90 days, 173 properties were sold. They turned over, right? Meanwhile, we have 992 active listings currently on the market, right? Which means that every single month, about 29% of our active listing inventory is going to turn over, which means it's going to take 3.4 months in order to sell through the entire current inventory, or about 102 days true days on market. And what you're going to notice when you do this calculation is it's very different from the average days on market published in your MLS, and it skews a lot higher. And that might scare you as a realtor, but it shouldn't. And it's going to factor into our listing presentation that I'm going to teach you in lesson number 2. So that's the first calculator. Once you know your true days on market using the absorption technique, then you're going to want to look at your list to sell discount. And let me cut away again and show you how that calculator works. All right, here we are. This is our list to sell discount calculator. And as usual, this can be found in nerdsheets.com. And as usual, you're looking at a view only file. So to actually use the calculator, you need to make a copy. You just go to File, make a copy, and there you have it. Just name it whatever you want and you're ready to go. So this is a 2-step calculator, really, really simple. You're going to put in the average list price and the average sale price for all solds in your market in the last 90 days. Now, I recommend 3 months in most situations. If you're in a very, very rural area where turnover is very slow, you might go back 6 months just so that you have somewhere between 500, at least 500 properties you're looking at. However far you need to go back to have at least 500 solds. In our case, we can do that with 3 months, and Fayetteville is not exactly a booming market, as you'll see in just a moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to click over to our MLS. We're on the matrix system. We're going to click solds for the last 90 days. We're going to go hyper local. So we're just going to go to our main service area, and we've got 873 matches. And so we're going to click on the results, and then we're going to go to the tabular view of our statistics. And I'll explain in just a moment why, but what we're going to do is we're going to do average list price, not median, average. It's very, very important. So we're going to go average and paste that in there. Oops. All right, so there's that. And then we're going to do average close price or sale price. And that's going to automatically calculate our average discount. And so the average discount or markdown is about 1.5%. And this is going to weave directly into our ultimate listing presentation, which I'm going to teach you in a moment. So we know that on average, homes in Fayetteville, North Carolina are discounted by about 1.5% before they ultimately sell. It's going to matter to your seller, and we'll talk more about why. But the reason why we use average and not median is that when you use median, this is going to represent the median list price and the median close price. Sometimes that will represent only one single property. And how much that one single property was discounted is not going to be predictive of how the market is going to perform at large. So I hope that makes sense. You can always ask questions in the comments below, and we'll explain it to you more fully. But you always want to use average here, not median. The third stat you need to know is your market's appreciation. And I'm not talking about the vague guesstimate that most agents use. Oh, the market appreciates at 8 or 9%. I'm talking about accurate appreciation for a specified time period, accurate down to a 100th of a %. And I'll show you how to do that when I cut over to the calculator. And here is our simple appreciation calculator. It's so simple, but it's so effective. You're going to feel like a math genius, even if you're kind of a math phobe. So, as usual, make a copy before you get started. You're looking at a view-only file. You can find this calculator inside of Nerd Sheets, but you're going to fill out the red dotted fields. And so we're going to start by saying, I want to calculate average appreciation over the past X number of years. And you're going to fill out this number. And you could go anywhere from 1 to literally 100 years, or however far back the data in your MLS goes. I recommend that you get out a piece of paper and that you know accurate appreciation 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years at a minimum. You should just have them written down, pasted somewhere in your office as a cheat sheet so that you know average appreciation for those standard time periods. And so we're just going to, for the purposes of this demonstration, we're going to do 3 years. And so what we're going to do is we're going to log into the MLS and we're going to look up the average sale price for this time period. And then we're going to rinse and repeat the average sale price over this time period. And it's that simple. So let me show you how to do it. So the first time period is October 2nd, 2021 through October 2nd, 2022. That's pretty easy. So let's go to do a residential home search. We're going to do hyper local. We're going to be in the Fayetteville area specifically. And we're going to go look at solds. And then we're just going to type in the date. So we're going to go 10/02/2021 through 10/02/2022. And that's going to be our time period. And we had over 5,000 matches. So we're going to click the results and go to the tabular view. And we're going to look at the median close price during that time period. And we do want to use median because it's going to be more accurate or more representative of typical properties. All right, so back to our calculator. We're going to paste that in. I know some of you guys are thinking you can get a full house for $194,000. Well, you could. Let's figure out what they're going for now. So we're going to go back and we're going to change the criteria. And we're literally, we're just going to do the same date range. We're actually going to do October 3rd through October 2nd, but we're going to do 2024 through 2025, right? So this time period is calculated automatically. And obviously a lot fewer homes sold than versus 3 years ago over that time period, but we're going to click results. We're going to go to the tabular view and we're going to look at median close price, and median close price over the past year was $249. So we go back to the, and boom, there we go. So over the past 3 years, average appreciation is 8.64%. And you can rinse and repeat this exact, so you could record this number in a notepad and you could rinse and repeat it for 1 year. And it's going to give you a new date range. And the fourth and final stat that you'll need in order to become a true market expert and fully set the table before your listing presentation is the Bulletproof CMA. So I don't have time to teach you how to do the Bulletproof CMA in this video. But the good news is we've already done a bunch of videos on the Bulletproof CMA. So what I would recommend that you do is after you watch this video, go to our YouTube channel, search Bulletproof CMA, and pick from several videos where we've taught through exactly how to do a Bulletproof CMA and to answer all your questions. But suffice it to say, this is the best CMA process in the world. It's going to give you an airtight, reasonable range of value, and you don't have to be a math genius in order to do it. It takes you about 15 minutes from start to finish, and we're going to give you a copy of our Bulletproof CMA software that will actually crunch all the numbers for you. And now you're ready for lesson number 2, the ultimate listing presentation. And what I plan to do in this section of the video is almost role play as if you're the seller and I'm the agent. So I'm just going to take you through my entire presentation word for word and step by step. All right, the last thing that I'm going to do before I drive to the appointment and show up for my listing presentation is I'm going to print out all the data from the last lesson. So I'm going to print out the MLS data. I'm going to print out the calculators. You can go to Google Sheets, save as a PDF, print them out. And then finally, I'm going to print out the 1-page report that you get from the Bulletproof CMA. And you can customize this with your colors, your logos, your company branding, etc. And you're going to print that out. It's absolutely beautiful. And we're going to put that on the stack of these papers, put it in a manila file folder or whatever you call that. And we're going to take this into the presentation because it's going to give some heft and weight to the presentation and the authority behind the numbers that you just pulled. You might think that I'm suggesting that you kill a bunch of trees unnecessarily. If you're feeling bad about that, you can always do one of those carbon offset things. But you really need that. You're going to need the data anyway. But I want you to print out, the full data so you've got some heft. So when you lay it on the table, they can feel it. And finally, we're ready to begin. So I've got my stack of papers. I'm going to slide it to the center of the desk. I'm going to look the seller in the eye and I'm going to say, Mr. Seller, before we go any further, I just want to confirm, what is it that you're looking for out of this transaction? What do you want? And if I may be so bold, I'm assuming it's simply two things. It is, number one, you want to sell the home as fast as possible. And number two, you want to net as much money as possible. Am I close? And of course, the seller's going to confirm, they're going to agree. And this is really important to establish at the outset because we really want to narrow down the focus of this presentation, that this is all we're trying to accomplish for the seller and everything else can fall by the wayside. So, Mr. Seller, there's really only two ways to sell a house. Now, there's well over 2,000 licensed realtors here in the Fayetteville, North Carolina area. So I guess you could say there's over 2,000 different ways to sell a house. But no matter what little idiosyncrasies each one of these realtors uses, every single one of them is going to fall into one of two methods. And so method number one is what we call the price approach. Now, this method, this approach is definitely the more popular one. It uses price to sell the property. It will close the deal. In fact, we like to say the price approach is undefeated, but it takes longer and it fetches a lower price. That's method number one. Method number two is what we call the traffic approach. The traffic approach, true to its name, uses traffic to sell the property. And it sells in 55% of average days on market. So it'll sell almost twice as fast or in half the average time. And it gets top dollar every single time. And this is where I'll open my folder that contains that stack of documents, the top page of which is my Bulletproof CMA 1-page report. And so I'll turn it around and I'll show it to the seller. And so I'll say, now it may seem obvious that method number two is far superior, but let me show you a little bit about each one of these methods before you choose. So what you're looking at is the Bulletproof CMA that I did on your property, Mr. Seller. And we used 3 different valuation techniques, the adjusted baseline, active comps, and closed comps. And we also took into account 53 different data points. So we put into our report 53 comps. So this is airtight. And what we've established is a range of values. So we have a low end, an average, and a high end, Mr. Seller. And at the low end, your property could go for $587,000, and at the high end, it would go for $648,000. But it all depends on which approach you choose. And so, the first one is the price approach, and the price approach, which is what the vast majority of all realtors use to sell the property. In fact, if you've already met with any other listing agents, this is probably what they recommended to you. They recommend that you would list the property at the low end of the reasonable range of value. So they're going to recommend that you list it around $587,000. Most realtors, of course, like charmed pricing. So they're probably going to suggest like $579 or something like that. But they're going to suggest you list it at the low end. They're not going to call it the low end, by the way, Mr. Seller. They're going to call it pricing the property aggressively. They might even suggest that this is going to help start a bidding war, although that's usually not true. So that's the price approach. List at the low end, $587,000, and then they're going to suggest that you reduce the price by 5% every 30 days. So every 30 days, you're going to get frustrated because you're going to be making another mortgage payment, and they're going to call you and tell you, the market has spoken. It clearly wasn't worth $587. We're going to reduce the price by 5%. And we know that realtors are doing this because the average discount or list to sell discount is about 1.5% here in Fayetteville, North Carolina right now. So based on average days on market, which is 102, we know that most people are getting to a couple of price reductions. Eventually, you are going to attract the bargain hunter and you're going to get the property sold. Again, the price approach, Mr. Seller, is absolutely undefeated. It will work to get your property sold. But I want to show you another approach called the traffic approach. So the traffic approach would suggest that we list at the high end and we would get every last dollar of value that we could out of your property, which would be $648,000 or $851, right? And this would be my suggested list price, but we'll talk more about it depending on what your goals are. And the traffic approach is where we list at the high end, $648,000, but then we list it 8% commission as a bribe. And so because 89% of all buyers are represented by a buyer's agent, we know that buyer's agents drive traffic and drive demand. And so the easiest way to increase demand for your property is place an incentive. We like to call it an ethical bribe, but place an incentive in the commission to attract more buyer's agents. And this will actually double the number of showings that we get in the first 30 days and get the property sold. All right. Now, some people look at the bribe and they think, gosh, I don't really want to pay out any more commissions than we have to. And so this is where I like to show you the direct side-by-side comparison. And so let me move my face. The direct comparison, it will show you exactly which method you'd prefer to use. So the price approach, we're going to list it at $587,000. The standard commission is 6%. Maybe it's 5% in your area, but it's 6% commission. And your net, Mr. Seller, will be $551,000. Okay, this is the price approach. The traffic approach is going to list it $648,000. And although we are going to pay out a higher commission, a higher buyer's agent commission, the net is going to be $596,000, meaning you're going to pocket an extra $45,000 net, which remember, your big motivation was you wanted to sell it fast and you wanted to net as much money as possible. And so generally speaking, when people ask my opinion, I recommend the traffic approach. The traffic approach is going to beat out the price approach every single time. But Mr. Seller, I want you to know that we're equally comfortable with whichever approach you'd like to take. And here we've given them a choice of two yeses where, goes without saying that they're going to list with you. It's just a matter of which approach. All right. Once you've given the seller the choice of two yeses, usually they're going to choose correctly. They want to use the traffic approach, that they want to get the property listed at a premium, 8% commission, and let's get this thing sold. And agents have a bigger problem with this than actual sellers do. Whenever we present this to a seller, it makes such intuitive sense that they're usually ready to go right then and there. And remember, if you set the table properly, right, you've demonstrated a command of the local market, and then you've done the presentation properly, where you accurately identified what they're trying to get out of the transaction, and then you showed them the clearest path forward to get that. But sometimes the seller is going to tell you, I need some time to think about it. And we want to avoid that. We want to close the deal today, even if the listing doesn't go live today. And so let me now show you how we're going to do that. And so this is the final segment of our listing presentation where we close the deal. So I'll look at my seller and I'll say, Mr. Seller, currently the average days on market in Fayetteville, North Carolina is 102. We figured that out in lesson number 1. So what that means, Mr. Seller, is that half of homes are going to sell in under 102 days. And unfortunately, half of homes are going to sell in over 102 days. Now, I think that we can beat that. But any agent that's told you that they're going to get the property sold in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, they either don't know their numbers or they may be misleading you. Or maybe they're planning on putting your home on clearance sale to attract the bargain hunter right away. But average days on market currently in Fayetteville, North Carolina is 102 days, right? So we know statistically that 70 days from now, you are going to be in a new home. This assumes that your seller is buying something to replace their current home. That won't always be the case, but we're just talking about regular single family residential. That's not an investor, just like a typical buyer who's also selling their home. Right. So 70 days from now, according to the National Association of Realtors, you're going to be under contract on your new home, like it or not. You may have found nothing out there that you're even remotely interested in, but still, the stats rule the day. And 70 days from now, you're going to be under contract on your new home, Mr. Seller. So we would like to set a safe listing date, which would very simply be 70 minus X, where X is the average days on market. So in this case, a safe listing date, Mr. Seller, would literally be 30 days ago. So the best time to put your home on the market would have been 30 days ago, so that you can start the process of getting the property sold, since we know on average it's going to take 102 days. But in this case, the next best listing date would be immediately. So we set the listing date. Now, remember, sometimes your average days on market is going to be less than 70. So you would just do 70 minus whatever your average days on market in. But in this case, really, we want to get the property listed ASAP. So, Mr. Seller, if you're prepared to move forward today and actually sign an exclusive listing agreement, you'll get, and then we insert a crunchy bribe, which I'll show you in the next slide, and your listing won't go live until tomorrow. All right. But if X was less than 70, then we just do, so let me give you a real live example. Okay. So recently we did this with an agent whose average days on market, they're in a much faster moving market than us. It was 38, right? So we would set a safe listing date at 70 minus 38. So it'd be 32 days from now. And so, if it's the first of the month, you say the first of the next month or the third of next month would be a safe listing date where you'll have plenty of time to still find the property that you're looking for. And we can still get the process moving to get your home sold. And so all you have to do is insert some kind of crunchy, irresistible bribe that the seller can't say no to in order to sign on the dotted line today, right? You can also make them feel very comfortable to say, hey, if you change your mind anytime between now and the next 32 days and you decide not to sell, or you want to push the listing date, we can absolutely do that. But we want to go ahead and get them to sign on the dotted line so they feel emotionally committed to using you as their realtor. So here's some examples of crunchy bribes we use to close the deal. Premium photography. So if you have a professional photographer that you spend a lot of money on, you could productize that and show them the value. But you could offer premium photography. You could offer virtual staging. Maybe that's worth $250 or something. You could offer premium marketing package where maybe you do some paid ads driving traffic to the property. And you could just throw that in for free if they're willing to sign today as the crunchy bribe, or maybe a 1% fee reduction. So you say if you're willing to sign today, we'll actually do the listing at 7%, and we'll still pay 4% to the buyer's agent, but I will do a 1% fee reduction if you're willing to sign today. And this gives them a reason to act right. So any one of these would be good, or you could literally do all four of them as the ultimate crunchy bribe if they're willing to sign on the exclusive listing agreement today. But the listing doesn't have to go live until the safe listing date that you've established in the prior slide. And that's it. You just closed the deal. So what do you think? You ready to give it a try? When you do, don't leave out any of the steps. Remember, the presentation won't work if you haven't properly set the table. But when you walk in the door of your appointment, armed to the hilt with all your market data, your confidence will cause the presentation to flow naturally. They already know you're the man or the woman before you ever open your mouth. And don't forget, if you want the full-length training, all the free downloads, like this video, share with a friend, and comment shared below, and I'll send you a private link to the training. Good luck, and please subscribe to the channel. We're close to another subscriber milestone.